The Antarctic Treaty System, why secrecy thrives. To understand why a single word, door, triggered a blackout, we have to follow the paperwork as much as the ice. The Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1959 and entered into force in 1961. It declares the continent a scientific preserve, bans military fortifications and weapons tests, and freezes territorial claims. That sounds transparent. It is, until you read the clause that matters. Military personnel and equipment may be used in support of science. That's the velvet glove. It lets C-17s, encrypted links, and uniformed crews operate under the banner of research. When something inconvenient appears beneath the ice, the same lift that delivers microscopes can deliver silence. Stakes for real people. If you work the ice, your world runs through a few choke points: Black Island, Ross Island Earth Station, NASA's relay windows. Flip a protocol there, and an entire station can vanish from the network without burning a single cable. The blackout we saw wasn't panic. It was procedure. Safety justifies everything. Restrict RF to prevent interference, stand down instruments to avoid false positives, close routes for ice instability. The forms read like concern. The effect is containment. This is why you don't know. A few toggles on links you never see, and the public record forgets in real time, while everyone can point to a policy that sounds responsible. You can say the treaty prevents secrets because any party in good standing can inspect any station at any time. In practice, any time dies in weather and distance. Flights need manifests. Windows collapse. A blizzard is a non-disclosure agreement signed by the wind. By the time an inspection clears, buffers are scrubbed, antennas under maintenance, and a flagged line warns of crevasse danger precisely where curiosity would step. This is what silence costs. Your satellite images are reprocessed, your news cycle moves on, and the next flight you take trusts models that have had the hum neatly removed. Meanwhile, the system encourages silence without a single lie. The treaty mandates free exchange of scientific observations and plans. It also allows measures to protect the environment and coordinate operations. That's where the lid lives. A temporary instrument stand-down becomes indefinite. A sampling moratorium becomes a no-go box. A multinational technical assessment appears with no project code. You can hear the hum through the wall. You can't route the file through the portal. And while those forms circulate, your right to know gets translated into later, which down here can mean never. Dates matter here. Operation Highjump ran in 1946 to 1947, a U.S. Navy expedition led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd that mapped and tested logistics around the Ross Sea. Its scale embedded the military into polar infrastructure long before the treaty civilized the language. McMurdo Station, established in the mid-195s, grew into the largest community. On the continent, a logistics heart that still beats for everyone on the Ross front. When the lights die at McMurdo in the 190 SAXS, 198s, or 202s, the mechanism is the same lineage. Military supporting science protocols that never left. If your weather app, your flight path, or your emergency alerts lean on those arteries, and they do, then your safety is already entangled with paperwork that can go quiet on command. Now here's the personal stake you don't see on a map. A comms technician at Black Island has a mortgage in Christchurch, and a kid who wants a snowboard for Christmas. He gets an instruction that isn't in the manual. Route VLF anomalies to a local buffer, label them maintenance, and don't mirror to the public archive. He doesn't think cover up. He thinks job. He tags the file Quiet Gate because engineers joke when they're careful, and goes home with a headache that beats 11 seconds to the minute. If he breaks procedure, he risks his contract. If he keeps it, he helps erase the thing giving him the headache. The ripple lands on your screen as a clean graph with the interesting part missing. While that's happening, a New Zealand grad student sees a harmonic ladder pop in her auroral spectra, then step off clean. Her advisor replies, "Don't share, keep recording." He isn't a villain. He's protecting her career inside a treaty culture that frowns on noise until a joint statement can sanitize it. Weeks stretch into months. The embargo doesn't lift. She applies for a grant and learns how silence sounds professional. You lose a discovery you paid for with taxes and trust. The inspection right looks comforting until you add geopolitics. The United States doesn't want to hand China a metric portal. China doesn't want to hand the United States a boundary operator. Russia wants a veto. The European Union wants standards before industry smells profit. Consensus rules at the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting mean one cautious party can slow disclosure for everyone. A single more study needed becomes a season. A season becomes a year. The gate keeps breathing. Your maps stay soft. Your GPS gets nudged, corrected, and logged as routine. This is why you don't know, because not yet scales to not for you. Here's the hook most viewers miss. Secrecy isn't a conspiracy when incentives align. There's no smoky room, just clean emails about environmental protection and safety windows aligned, coincidentally, with the gate's strongest envelopes. And there's you. If the gate is real, the first use that changes your life isn't teleportation, it's control of narrative. Patents, prestige, satellites, bargaining chips. The institution that names the phenomenon writes the first textbook and licenses the first sensor. Your energy bill, your GPS accuracy, your city's resilience in storms. Those shift if someone learns to shave entropy at a boundary. You have skin in this game. What silence costs is simple. Decisions about your infrastructure happen without you, and by the time the press release lands, the standard is already owned. A micro moment that keeps me up. An inspector radios to approach a flagged sector. Cheerful denial comes back. Winds scour unsafe bridges. Recommend 1 kilometer standoff. He photographs the flags, files the report, and leaves. He never learns that the flagged coordinates were offset by 4 digits on the only map that mattered that week. Nobody lied. The weather helped. Your right to know drowned politely. So why did the lights go out? Because the treaty that promised openness also built the perfect machine for coordinated quiet. It was designed to keep peace. It excels at keeping time, 11 seconds at a time, until someone decides the world is ready for the hum. Until then, this is why you don't know. And this is what silence costs. Worse models, brittle trust, and choices about your safety made by people who can point to a rule while they turn down the volume. The Ross Ice Shelf Anomaly, initial discovery and data spikes. 3 days before the blackout, the anomaly introduced itself as a blip we could ignore. A VLF sensor near Roosevelt Island registered a narrowband tone at 8.97 kHz that shouldn't have survived the snowpack. The tech flagged it as interference from a generator startup. Routine. But then a second instrument, an induction coil 20 kilometers away, caught the same tone, phase shifted by exactly 11 seconds. That was the first fingerprint. Coherence across distance in weather that normally shreds signals. Stakes first. A station lives on predictability. Power budgets. Flight windows. Ice conditions. When your instruments start singing together to a note no one is playing, logistics fray. People miss sleep. Flights drift. The line between anomaly and hazard thins. If a shelf the size of France starts breathing to a clock you don't control, you pin your ears back and listen, because you've got crews on the ice and a pilot threading cloud at minimums. Action. The morning. After the double hit, we pushed a small team out to service the induction coils. The diver, he wasn't supposed to be a diver that day, was attached to a hot water drill crew widening a refreezing access bore above a known subglacial cavity. He's the one who first felt the tug. Instruments read normal. Water column temperature stable. But the coil's signal, moved closer to the bore, grew cleaner. Meanwhile, the seismic array began showing micro-events, rhythmic, low amplitude, repeating at 11-second intervals. Not tectonic. Not tide. A mechanical regularity lived inside what should have been noise. What nobody knew at the time. A graduate researcher on the night shift had already mapped a ladder of sidebands stepping off that 8.97 kHz carrier, harmonics at exact multiples and submultiples. She annotated a note. If you tap the timing, the structure answers. She didn't send it to the public archive. Her advisor told her to keep recording until we could characterize sources. That phrase is how good ideas go quiet. Human moment. She texted her sister at home that night. My graphs look like a choir. Her sister sent back a penguin emoji and a heart. 30 minutes later, the first GPS drift reported. A 3-centimeter discrepancy over a 3-hour baseline, corrected by the system, logged as routine variation. It wasn't routine. The drift lined up with the hum's envelope. By midday, the ice radar crew returned with a sliced cross-section of the cavity roof. The image had a line that refused physics, a luminous, horizontal discontinuity with no return above or below. Not a void, not liquid, a place where the radar decided the world had paused. When they nudged the frequency down to match the VLF tone's submultiple, the line brightened. Someone whispered the forbidden word, gate, because once your tools respond to a key, your brain labels the door. Meanwhile, something else was happening out on the shelf edge. A weather station started missing packets every 11 seconds, as if a metronome stole a heartbeat and gave it back. A helicopter pilot keyed up an offhand complaint. Static's breathing. He laughed it off. Then he asked on a private loop if anyone else saw a soft shimmer above the bore like heat rising, which in a whiteout is a joke until it isn't. He wasn't the only one to see it. Impact. The first real consequence was procedural. We were told to throttle transmitters near the cavity to reduce self-induced interference. That slowed uplinks and pushed more data to local buffers labeled maintenance. The second consequence was physical. The diver's tether ticked once, just a twitch, as he eased near the bore mouth. He said later it felt like standing too close to a subwoofer, pressure without sound. He pulled back. The coil's trace spiked. The 11-second heartbeat jumped to 10 for 2 cycles, then settled. The system had noticed him noticing it. Here's where the psychology bites. The more the site answered to timing, the more you want to test it. The tech in you aches to tap the rhythm and see what opens. But every person on that ice has a life waiting off continent. Flights home, parents aging, a partner pregnant. If you poke the thing that bends your GPS and it pokes back harder, you might strand a season. You might strand yourself. So you do the safe thing. You label, you buffer, you slow down. Then the climactic pivot. At 020Z, the VLF tone widened to a chord. 3 notes spaced at precise ratios you'd recognize if you've ever tuned a guitar. The seismic heartbeat synced to that chord. The radar line brightened, and for 12 seconds the cavity returned a smooth, mirror-like plane that made the math say, no medium. That's when the diver broke the surface and said what we'd all been avoiding. It's a door, and it's humming. The blackout wasn't fear. It was policy snapping shut because the anomaly had crossed a line, from data spike to interface. And once you say interface out loud, the world you came to measure starts measuring you back. The diver's account, first contact with the structure. They pulled him into the galley because it was warm and bright and smelled like coffee, not brine. He wrapped both hands around a mug he didn't drink and kept glancing at the stainless tabletop like the dark plane might bloom there if he stared long enough. He said the tether felt clean at first, no drag, no surge, just the usual slow sway of shelf water. Then the coil trace in his ear began ticking at 11 seconds, soft as breath, and the current around his knees went orderly, as if a messy room had been straightened while he blinked. You've got minutes down there. That's the stake. 12 if everything's perfect. Less if anything isn't. He had a partner due a baby in February, and a mother waiting on a call he'd promised to make before he got on the last flight out. He isn't a thrill seeker, he fixes things for a living. So when the bore widened and the light from his lamp flattened on nothing, he moved slow. He called it a door because brains need nouns. The boundary wasn't black, it was subtraction, the place where shine went and didn't come back. He put that finger width of water between his glove and the plane and felt pushback without contact, like standing near a speaker too big for the room. He eased a knife tip forward. No scrape. No click. Just syrup where water should be thin. He counted with the pulse, 1 through 11, and on 12 the knife shivered colder than the sea, and left an after image you couldn't stare at straight. He tested the edge the way divers test anything that might kill them. Small, repeatable, clipped to a line. The tether arced toward the plane as if gravity leaned that way. He marked a square loop around it and watched his own guideline bow. That's when he noticed the silt, motes hanging like a curtain caught mid-fall, rearranging into a faint lattice on each up-step of the tone. He waved a hand. The curtain moved obediently, then returned to the pattern like it preferred order to his opinion. Here's the personal moment that changed his breathing. His radio cracked alive underwater. No voice, just a clean, dry tone that matched the carrier he'd been counting. It isn't supposed to be that clear under ice. He squeezed to transmit and said, E17, I've got a structure. No answer. The tone stepped low late by 1 beat. His chest went tight with the feeling you get when a big animal turns its head, not toward you exactly, but near enough that your skin knows you've been included. He told us he thought about his partner then. Not the baby's name, not the ultrasound photo folded in his wallet. The promise he'd made to be done with dumb risks. He isn't reckless. He is, however, precise. So he tried one more thing. He set his palm parallel to the plane, stopped just shy of the pushback, and breathed in time with the pulse. On the third cycle, his forearm hair prickled under the suit, and he heard, Not with ears, something shaped like a cord resolving. The silt lattice widened by a hair. He pulled away fast, suddenly certain that he wasn't just observing, he was being measured back. Up above, daylight through the crack shifted by a degree that didn't make sense. The line home should have been straight. It wasn't. He gave the agreed 2 tugs. The tether resisted, then came free with the grudging feel of Velcro lifting. While he rose, a flake of ice drifted down, kissed the boundary, and began rotating like it had found a tiny axle. He didn't wait to see if it stopped. At the surface he gasped the line they wrote in the incident report, door humming, but he saved the part that mattered until the second mug. When I backed off, it tugged back, he said, eyes on the metal table. Not to keep me, to know me. He flexed the hand he'd held near the plane. There was a shape in my bones on the 12th beat. Not a word. A check. He asked for one thing before they took his statement. Call home and say he'd be late. They let him. He didn't tell her about the door. He told her he loved her and that the weather was getting weird. Then he came back and added one last detail to the log. The hum matched his breath without him forcing it, and when he tried to break rhythm, his heart wanted to stay. The technology revealed, analyzing the gate structure. We stopped calling it an object. Objects sit in space. This thing set the terms of space, and then asked if we could keep up. The first clean clue came from light. A laser line skimmed the boundary and didn't refract or reflect, it translated. Same wavelength in, same wavelength out, but displaced by a constant that tracked the 11-second carrier's low harmonic. That's not a surface, that's an operator mapping paths. A camera tried to see the bend and got perfect video of nothing, plus timestamps that shuffled on every upstep, then snapped back when the pulse flattened. Stakes, and they're personal. If time order can slip by a fixed count near the interface, sending anyone or anything through without a protocol isn't brave, it's negligent. The diver had a partner due in February. A tech on our team had a kid with asthma. Nobody wanted to be the name tied to a mistake you can't reverse because reverse becomes optional. We worked by proxy. A microthermistor was eased to a hair's breadth of the visible haze. Temperature fell, but not like heat sinking into ice. The curve said motion was being shaved, translational energy damped while rotation barely changed. When the bead crossed the threshold, the reading locked to a non-physical constant and resumed normal a finger width out. The logger stayed powered. The world didn't glitch, our coupling to measurement did. The physicist wrote 2 words in his notebook, admission filter. Meanwhile, the water told us a second language. Silt froze into an interference lattice that breathed with the carrier, expanding on the up step, contracting on the down, spacing ratios that lined up with orbital resonances and Fibonacci. Intervals. When we fed the boundary those same ratios with a coil, the finger width pushback widened by a measurable fraction. That's a handshake. Not mysticism. Control theory. We tested magnetics and got a shock without the spark. Dragging a coil along a rail near the channel generated current only when the late harmonic arrived. No changing flux lines, no classical cut. The model that fit wasn't field strength. It was topology, local geometry pinched and reattached so that what looked static from outside carried hidden gradients inside the math. The sleepless physicist muttered into a recorder, boundary conditions set by an external operator, and wouldn't claim more on paper. Geometry refused to sit still. Sonar projected a rectangle, but measured perimeters changed with path. Walk a virtual tape clockwise and you come home late. Walk counterclockwise and you return early, with the discrepancy phase locked to tides. That mapped to a curvature well with walls, space insisting on staying itself inside the channel as the shelf flexed around it. Ice billowed like cloth past a post that wasn't anchored to ice at all. The diver's word, hover, stopped being a metaphor. It was compliance with the interface's refusal to share a boundary with chaos. Then came the micro-stories that anchor theory. 2 coins, copper and aluminum, taped to a carbon pole, eased toward pushback. The copper warmed the glove instantly. The aluminum stayed cold. Millimeter wave scans later showed a temporary jitter in the copper's electron density, a fine smear that faded over minutes. Preference isn't chemistry there, it's electron configuration. The gate talks to lattices that can carry phase cleanly and ignores ones that scatter. Time added teeth. We dipped a fiber camera just shy of the boundary. Frames came back smooth and dark, sure, but the timecode shifted backward by a fixed number on every upstep, vanished on a flat breath, and never randomized. That isn't noise. That's deterministic reordering, causal housekeeping to keep the channel clean. Finally, energy. The hum's envelope rose on spring tides and during mild auroral hiss, fell on neeps. A gravimeter ticked in sympathy. Feed matched timing, gain increases by 3%. Stop, it slides back. Power here isn't a plume. It's order, local entropy shaved, metric stiffened in one axis and loosened in another. Useful if your machines speak metric. Dangerous if your body does. So what is it? Not a slab. Not a hole. A boundary operator that regulates a stable channel by verifying invariance, rhythm, ratio, coherence, and reshaping the neighborhood until those invariants hold. It admits what can keep time and denies what can't. You don't break it, you negotiate with it. And every negotiation starts with the same question pulsing through the room. Can you keep the beat? The physics of the impossible, energy signatures and temporal distortion. We chase the hum into numbers because numbers don't flinch. The envelope tracks spring tides, higher on big lunar pulls, softer on neeps, and nudged upward during mild auroral substorms. That coupling told us the interface drinks from strain and hiss, but doesn't radiate in any familiar band. Energy here isn't a plume you photograph. It's a correction you feel when spoons tick once in a rack and pendulums lose phase near the boundary, then recover like they were apologized to. We needed a baseline. We built a ring of clocks, oven-stabilized oscillators, GPS-disciplined, and then deliberately decoupled, to see if time near the gate drifted. Far out, drift matched spec. Step inward by tens of meters and a tiny, periodic bias appeared at the carrier cadence. Step closer, and the bias sharpened into a sawtooth that reset on the late harmonic. It wasn't random jitter. It was a metronome trimming time, then replacing the trimmings on schedule. The model that fit wasn't broken clocks. It was a boundary holding a local time ruler straighter than ours and forcing reconciliation at fixed beats. Stakes, and they're more than academic. Time bias wrecks navigation, yes, but it also reaches into people. A winter-over medic ran heart rate variability checks to track stress. Volunteers who spent hours within the flagged sector showed a slow, coherent shift toward the 11-second breath, with a nested 73-second envelope that matched a faint modulation we'd seen in magnetometer residue. Their sleep improved. Their startle reflex dipped. It sounds nice until you realize a machine is teaching your nervous system a song, and your body is obliging. If you've got a partner waiting on a flight home, you don't want a gate making you better at staying. Action tightened around a simple test. Could we change the gain? We fed a coil with Fibonacci-spaced pulses at the base frequency. The pushback widened by 3% and held as long as the input persisted. Stop, it slid back with a gentle lag. Repeat, and the response curve steepened by a hair as if the interface recognized us. That's textbook feedback with memory. Hysteresis in a device that shouldn't have one if it were inert. We tried white noise. Nothing. Prime ratios landed. Anything sloppy was ignored. Meanwhile, light and time danced in a way that forced our hand. A fiber camera held just shy of the haze returned frames with deterministic out-of-order stamps on every up step, then snapped to normal when the carrier flattened. We fed a phase-coded light pulse at the moment of the reordering and caught, once, a perfect echo displaced by a constant equal to the fixed time shift. That single, clean bounce said the interface wasn't garbling time. It was buffering and replaying on a schedule, temporal congestion control for a channel that refuses chaos. What nobody knew at the time was that the gravimeter's microblips, the pendulum drift, and the clock bias could be fit by a boundary value problem that treated the interface as an external operator minimizing local action at the beat frequency. The math said you can pull usable order out of tidal strain if you can set constraints from outside. We can't. Something there can. That's why nothing heats, nothing cools, and yet everything near the boundary gets easier in one direction and stickier in another. Complication hit when we tried to overdrive. We pushed a stronger harmonic ladder. The carrier didn't grow louder. It got purer. Sideband junk fell away as if the gate cleaned us, then trimmed our input to its own preference and handed back a safer copy. Our coil registered power, but our spectrum analyzer saw less mess. The device disciplines visitors. That's good for stability. It's bad for arrogance. Impact lands here. Energy at the gate is order, not watts. Time at the gate is policy, not drift. If it is a wormhole throat, it's domesticated, stabilized from a side that invests only when the caller stays in tune. If it's a programmable metric boundary, the admission test is coherence, and failing it doesn't explode you, it ignores you. Pass, and the room's laws tighten so you don't tear them. Either way, the first human crossing won't be a sprint. It'll be a choir, clocks, coils, breath, stepping through on a beat that will not wait for our comfort. And if you're thinking this is someone else's problem, check your teeth the next time a storm rolls the shelf. If you feel a tick every 11 seconds, you're already on the left.